set this up, make it look fancy. There. Cheers.
No one else goes.
What's going on? It's Mark with Echelon Media, and welcome to another episode of the Echelon broadcast. As you can very well tell, this is a completely different setup, and that's because I want to change it up a little bit. And by change it up, I mean actually go back to the way things were. But before I continue, I just want to make sure that you subscribe, and of course that you hit the notification bell so that you stay up to date with these videos as I drop them every week. First of all, I wanted to do an update, and it's that I want to get back to doing the Echelon broadcast as the Echelon broadcast, and I like having it more free form, so I'm going to go back to having it so that I have the Echelon broadcast and the tutorial videos every week, only because it gives me a much better structure to have a more specific, very tactical set of instructionals for you, as well as having something more free form with the Echelon broadcast. That being said, this is going to be sort of the last instructional Echelon broadcast, I would say. It's still going to be informative. It'll still have some usable value that you can take home and apply to your small business. I just want to have it so that it's more of a discussion. For this particular one, I want to focus on actually, with all the information that I want to crank out, I want to focus on actually executing this information. Because all this stuff is great, but, and I'm guilty of this as well, information is good only if you apply it to actually make some sort of tangible change in your business or in your life. You can sit there and read about diets and exercise all day, but if you don't do anything about it, you're not making any changes. So with that, I wanted to kind of go over a few things that help me to actually execute a lot of this stuff. First of all, understand that you need to be, it's not just a matter of motivation. Motivation is the initial driving force that gets you actually out the door to get it going. But the next step is actually following through on that motivation, that passion or inspiration or what it happens to be, and actually executing on it. So the first step would be just execution. Now, to tag along very closely to that execution is actually consistency, because execution is nothing if you just do it one time or if you do it every now and then, and there's no consistency. Because in order to actually establish a set of habits to make it a part of your daily life or to make it a part of your business, it has to be executed on a consistent basis. So the next step would be consistency. Now the next step is actually developing a sense of awareness around what it is that you're doing so that you're constantly keeping track of what it is that you're doing on a consistent basis. Because if you don't have an awareness around what it is that you're doing, if you don't have a system to actually keep you in check, you'll inevitably falter. And luckily, you can call this self-loathing or like kicking myself in the butt, but every so often I do manage to check into myself and go, okay, I'm not necessarily on the right track that I want to be on. So just to recap that before I go on, it's actually executing and setting a bias for executing an action. Right, very close to that, number 2 would be consistency, and following on the heels of that, number 3 would be actually developing a self-awareness and tracking your progress so that you know that you're actually on the right track. If you happen to be watching this on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so you stay up to date with these videos as they drop every single week. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into these 3 steps now, or these 3 points right now. The first one that I mentioned is execution and having a bias for action. And I say that because this was something I learned a few years back when I was trying to develop myself and I really started to understand personal development and self-help. All that stuff is great, but one of the most common things that tends to happen in the self-help universe is that people get caught up in the excitement and the motivation and the passion behind all the information that they pick up and they read and they go to seminars and become seminar junkies. And inevitably you find that the only thing that's different is that now you're going to a bunch of seminars. What I tended to find in myself and in other people is that they weren't necessarily executing on the information so much as they were just consuming the information and feeling like there was a change in their life, because to a degree there was, but the only change that had happened in their life was they were just going to seminars and they were telling themselves these great affirmations and writing things on their mirror to remind themselves of what they should be doing rather than actually executing it. The reason why this is critically important is because in order for you to actually adapt a new set of habits and actually make a change in your life, you need like a lot of energy and momentum and thrust to get away from what you normally do on a day-to-day basis, because we're creatures of habit. And it's been conveyed to me in the past that it's similar to the way that rockets work as they escape the gravitational pull of the Earth. You need to create a lot of thrust, just a lot of to actually break away from the gravity or the Earth. And so it needs you to more than just have the passion and motivation in the moment. You need a lot of momentum, both to push you on a day-to-day basis, as well as something that's going to pull you forward into the new life or the new business habits that you want to establish yourself. We can tell ourselves and have all the affirmations in the world, but if you don't happen to develop a sense of everything has to be in alignment, I can no longer, sometimes, like you have to completely detach from your old peer group and all these things to actually get that forward momentum, you'll never make any progress. And the next step to that, like I mentioned before, step 2 is consistency. So it's not just about having that huge amount of passion and fire to push you and propel you forward. It's also about having the consistency to keep doing it on a consistent basis, because the thing that always gets me is that consistency is what helps your mind and body to understand that this is just going to be how we do things every day. It's not going to be as mindless as getting up in the morning and going to the bathroom and brushing your teeth and getting ready for the day. It won't be for the initial few stages, maybe for the first 90 days, usually 3 months, but 30 days to 90 days is usually about that point when it really hits its stride. And even then, at some points, things will test your ability to stay consistent with that habit, because life will pull you back into what you normally used to do. And so it's going to be a challenge. And so the only way that you can overcome that challenge is to consistently remind yourself and to consistently execute on these new habits. It's just like going to a new job. If tomorrow, for example, you were fired from whatever it is that you're doing right now and you needed to get a new job because it was the only way to actually maintain consistent income, you would go and execute on the job, even if it was something you absolutely hated, and you would do it every single day dispassionately. You won't have this like fiery excitement in your belly the way that you do with all these huge goals and aspirations for yourself, but you do it every day, no questions asked, and you know that if you slack or if you're late, you're gonna be held accountable to that, because there are rules and policies in place that make sure that you don't violate those things, and so you have to execute. And so that being the case, the next step in this whole process is actually establishing a set of accountabilities, whether that happens to be setting up a bet with friends, or just being able to have the self-awareness to notice that you are off track. You need something that's going to keep you in check, because from what I understand, motivation comes from 2 places. One, it's being attracted to or pulled to a new life, the thing that you aspire to achieve and become. So it's about being drawn into that energy. The other part of it is happening to be being shoved in the direction of whatever it is that you're trying to do, because you want to get away from the negative things that are holding you back, or you want to get away from that old life that's keeping you stuck. And so you have to find this balance between being pushed and pulled towards the new business or the new life that you want to achieve in order to do all this, to become who it is that you want to become. Now, why do I say all this stuff? Why even consider all of this information? Because for as much information as I am sharing with you, for as much tactical, usable stuff that I'm putting out there, you need to be able to execute on it. And unless you actually execute on it, you're just spinning your wheels. And so it's critically important to go ahead and do that. I hope this was informative. Thank you so much for joining me on this new and interesting chapter of this journey. I have to keep myself in check and make sure that I stay consistent with these videos, because it does become a challenge with all the things that I'm trying to balance and juggle. And any business owner can understand that you're not just working on your main technical proficiencies, you're also having to make sure that you balance the books and you keep your employees happy and that you pay the lease on your brick and mortar if you happen to have one. There's so many things that you have to juggle, and so trying to actually embody something like online video marketing and do that on a day-to-day basis can be really difficult. But understand that it's going to help you massively as the word that gets tossed around is scale your progress, because you're able to tap into social media and online marketing and make use of that more. Anyways, if you happen to like this, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Go ahead, and if you have any questions or thoughts or ideas that you'd like to share, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. And of course, since you're happen to be watching this on the YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you stay up to date with videos as they come out every week. I hope this has been informative and useful for you. I do try to make it as usable as humanly possible. And so with that being said, my name is Mark with Echelon Media, helping you elevate your story. I'll see you next time. Peace.